little bit about the transmission. So like I said, it is a M4, a BMW M4 DCT. It's a 7-speed dual clutch transmission. These came out of the M3 and M4 that had the S55 motor in it, and it is going to be controlled by HTG GCU via CAN bus communication between it and the Megasquirt 3 Pro Evo. We will be using a drive-by cable throttle to start with, and if we run into issues where we want to add throttle blip, rev matching, then we will eventually upgrade, more than likely, to a Bosch drive-by-wire throttle body, and then add the BWX2 drive-by-wire controller to the Megasquirt system. Most of our parts come from Mike Dodge over at Seems Legit Garage, including this yoke adapter for the drive shaft. We've got his oil cooler adapter. I believe we purchased the HTG GCU from him as well. We will be getting a billet oil pan from him soon. Got the parking lock release, all the filters need to be changed out. Just about everything that is needed for this swap we've obtained from him. We also got the Dummy Works adapter plate for the 2JZ adapter. Basically just an adapter that goes over the between the bell housing and the engine, and there is a little billet adapter that goes onto the stock flywheel that bolts straight to the flywheel, and then just is just a hub adapter essentially. You do have to mill your flywheel down just a little bit in order for the bolts to have enough clearance to bolt up to it, and not take off too much material where you weaken the flywheel. So it's got to be within a very specific range, which we had some local guys take care of that for us for the machining. But that's pretty much the rundown on the transmission. It's going to have stock clutches. Hopefully it holds up to the power that we throw at it. We need to get some paddle shifters from him as well that we'll be installing, and the DCT actual sequential style shifter, which will be installed in here for drifting and just the overall just sequential feel. All right, so I'll throw some pictures of this thing up on here, and maybe some videos of whenever it was together and clean and pristine, and now it's all looking strung out. So this is a VVTi Aristo GTE that we had lying around, this old thing just sitting in the garage, just begging to be put in something. So what we've done is it's pretty much a stock bottom end GTE, but we've got GSC stage 1 billets. It's a 269 profile cam, and we've got the GSC beehive springs and retainers, titanium retainers, and MRS shimless buckets from the 2ZZ GE, so that we can rev to the moon without having any issues with the valve train. All Titan hardware, ARP hardware. We've got the ARP 625 head bolts in there with a stock head gasket. We're using the LS coils that I used on the M20. We're using the same, pretty much the exact same harness and everything from the M20 setup from Megasquirt 3 Pro Evo. That's pretty much it on the motor. I mean, it's really basic. You know, we're going to run ID 1700Xs. We've got a radium fuel system with a direct mount regulator. You know, the usual -8 lines feed, -6 return. Probably going to use a Wabro 450 main with a 525 that's going to be on separate table for higher boost when we need it. Yeah, stock manifold, intake manifold. We will be using a LS throttle body though, so we're going to make an adapter from here to put the LS throttle body around here somewhere, and then of course, you know, it's going to go behind this fancy little treadstone regulator. I'm sorry, fancy treadstone intercooler that we have. Chase base power steering kit makes it pretty simple. A little wonky with raising the motor. It wasn't really designed to be up that high, so we may make a different mount for it to bring it up level. We're also doing the Chase Bay's brake booster eliminator kit, which at first didn't fit with the height of the motor. We were going to have to make one brake line that was compatible, but we ended up raising the motor, and now it's not a problem. So it's perfect. Maybe that's how it was designed to be with a bigger motor. Who knows? Or with a higher motor. I don't know, it didn't work in its stock form. So still got to figure out the cable situation. We do have this huge Griffin radiator in here, which might be a little too big, but we're able to fit a fan in there. It's a little bit of clearance between that and the front mount. It is most definitely big enough as far as capacity. Is this huge treadstone, I keep saying manifold and all this other stuff, regulator. The treadstone intercooler is going to be possibly in the way of airflow. So we'll just have to see. It's an experiment. Hopefully we'll be able to have a 3 inch to a 2.5 inch 90 coming to the Precision 6466 with the 1.0 housing, which has made it to a Drugo, old school Drugo manifold. Some of you old school 2JZ guys will remember that one. We'll see how long that one lasts. Precision 46 millimeter wastegate should get the job done. Of course, everything will be electronically controlled for boost with the 4-port Mac. Got those radium little press fittings for the dash 10s, which will go to a catch can. It will sit over there. All of this will be covered up. It'll look really nice. We'll have a bunch of covers over there and make everything nice and tidy. The whole front bumper will be assembled, and hopefully this treadstone manifold, or golly, I keep saying manifold. Why is it not? It's not a manifold. It's an intercooler. But treadstone makes manifolds, so maybe that's why. But the front bumper will fit over this. We will have a good bit of cutting, and you can see there. Yes, that is my alias. That thing has been around since my Volkswagen 12, 13 years ago, which a lot of you guys that have subscribed would remember that. But yeah, so I transfer that over because I'm sleepy dub. So anyways, enough about the JZ setup, because that's not what that's really not why you tuned in for this. You tuned in because it's a JZ and an M4 DCT swap in an E30, which has never been done before. So yeah, that's why you're here. And I can tell you why it's not been done before. I can tell you exactly why. Because most people, sorry, my homemade Taurus side skirts are just falling off. Yeah, probably gonna redo this. This is why. Yeah, that's why. Because you have to rip your entire interior out, cut the trans tunnel, just to fit this behemoth of a transmission in here. Yesterday, we ended up scanning the bottom side of the vehicle with a 3D scanner so that we can create some custom transmission mounts for it. And yeah, so I'll post up a picture of the scan so you can see that. And then next weekend we are going to come in and make the mounts. So the transmission will be set, good to go. We do have ideal ground clearance now. Before it was hanging down way too low. Now it is to the point where I can be low and not sacrifice ground clearance. So it probably has more ground clearance actually than the M20 had. I think the M20's oil pan rested a little lower than the subframe, but as you can see, we've got the 2JZ pan resting nice and above the steering rack. So rip steering rack if I ever hit anything. And then the subframe is right there, and it's higher than that. So all right, we got the car up in the air. So like we were talking about with the ground clearance, nice and high. As you can see, we had to use these for just kind of an estimate for the mounts. We will be using a bar stock of aluminum. So we actually, these are transmission mounts and the engine mounts stacked on top of each other, just to kind of give us a total height for the bar stock. So we will end up making those completely solid. But yeah, so it fits in here pretty nicely with the transmission now and the trans tunnel completely cut out. You can see that that pan is way, way above the frame rails right now. But it will come down. So here's the frame rail. It will come down more, but it will sit absolutely flush with that. And we'll have a nice little skid plate under there to keep this pan from getting torn up, which we will likely be going with a Seems Legit Garage mini pan to try to give us some additional ground clearance. But either way, we've got the pinion angles pretty much figured out. There's about a 2.5 degree difference between there and there. Other problem is gas tank. Yeah, so gas tank is in the way. There's only two options. It's either, I don't know, beat the gas tank in and cut this out, which I don't even know if that's enough clearance or not, or run a fuel cell. I really don't want to run a fuel cell, but I don't mind it as much if I can fit it back here. Yes, this is all cut out. If I can fit it back here and have the fuel system, I don't really want it in the trunk. I'd rather have it down here and just be low, you know, as long as it's not like, you know, hanging down below, because I don't want people to see that I got a fuel cell. So if a fuel cell can go in here and I can have fuel lines tucked under and maybe just take this inspection plate off to gain access to it, that would be great. And then obviously I want to retain the factory fill, so I would just probably cut this or something and then run a hose over to the you know, to the fuel cell and see if maybe we can get that to work. I don't know. It's all up in the air at this point. We got a lot of work to do. But let's go over the suspension setups. Really basic. Got the extra diff mounts. Got a lot of reinforcement plates here on the trailing arms. We've got camber and toe adjustment. Diffs dropped down a little bit. Got an extra Willwood caliper up there for the handbrake. Pretty basic setup. DC Racing coilovers. Which these aren't obviously coilovers that are divorced because it's semi trailing arm. Stock sway bar, probably going to take that sway bar off. It doesn't really do anything, and I'd like to have a little bit more articulation out of the rear end. Yeah, it's a 293 LSD factory, but that's coming out because I got an M4 DCT. It's a long ratio, so it's going to get a 373 in it with the welded for all the skids. May go back with a actual LSD 373 though, because I do like the way that the factory LSD works. And yeah, I mean, it's good for parking lots and whatnot, or I could just stop being a little punk and just deal with the welded. So the front end's got SLR, old school 10-year-old SLR adjustable control arms. Haven't seen those in a while, have you? Yeah, they're old, still work, no problems. DC coils. I think that's actually SLR top hats up there for the camber and caster adjustments. Adjustable lollipops from SLR. It's got a E36 rack in it. And that's pretty much it. No bar up front, which I probably need to throw a bar on there and lower the spring rates on here to actually get some kind of, you know, nice feeling suspension. Back whenever I had my old car, the old 2JZ stuff, this came off of the old 2JZ car, so I had a super high spring rate on there thinking that that was necessary for the 2JZ, but it's probably not. So really I should just revalve those and put a lower spring rate in them in front and back, and then throw a bar on here, and we'll probably have a much better setup. But for now, it's gonna have to work. It just is what it is. I'm not gonna change it up until after everything else is done. So that's kind of the suspension in the nutshell. That's pretty much everything in the nutshell. I'm sure I'm missing a bunch of stuff, like the ATI dampener and the PHR oil pump that you can't see that's up there. That's modified. You know, billet timing tensioner from Titan. I don't know. There's just so much stuff I'm gonna forget, I'm sure. I had to take the heater core out and the evaporator and all my blower motor and all that controls out because, you know, it can't live in this thing with the DCT in it. So sacrificing that, but I'm not worried about AC. I do want some heat, so I think we're going to put some blower motors in there with the heating element from a convertible BMW, at least for the defrost, and then we'll probably be able to use that for some heat too. But honestly, I mean, this car is going to just be a weekend driver. Just go out and bust some heads, go to drift events. I don't really plan on driving it much in the rain, so I'm not too worried about defrost. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Like I said, I'm sure I left out a bunch of stuff, so we will try to keep everybody updated.